What if I told you that the worst things that ever happened to you might have been the best? I know it sounds absurd. After all, who looks at betrayal, humiliation, failure, or abandonment and thinks this is a blessing? Almost no one. Most people spend years trying to erase the scars of the past, when in fact they should be studying what those scars tried to teach them. And here's the truth that few dare to say: the moments that hurt you the most may have been exactly the moments that prevented you from remaining weak. Machiavelli understood something that remains uncomfortable even today. Life doesn't reward those who live trapped in illusions. It rewards those who learn to see reality as it truly is. A politics guided by reality, not by ideals. And that's precisely why so many people spend their entire lives complaining about difficulties, while others use those same difficulties as raw material to build power. Perhaps you've been rejected. Perhaps your abilities have been doubted. Perhaps someone has tried to diminish your dreams, ridicule your goals, or make you believe you weren't good enough. But there's a question that changes everything. What if these people, without realizing it, were contributing to your transformation? What if the pain wasn't the end of the story, but the beginning? Most believe that growth happens through comfort. Reality shows the exact opposite. The strongest men are rarely born into easy environments. They were shaped by losses, challenges, disappointments, and silent battles that no one saw. What seems like destruction to an outside observer is often just a phase of construction, and the more one understands human nature, the more one realizes that virtù and fortuna work together in unexpected ways. Some doors close to protect you. Some falls happen to strengthen you. Some defeats exist to reveal who you can truly become. In this video, you'll discover why the people who tried to destroy you may have made the biggest mistake of their lives. You'll understand how pain can transform into strength, how rejection can create independence, how failures can develop strategic vision, and why those who learn these lessons become virtually impossible to manipulate. Because there's a huge difference between someone who has never suffered and someone who has survived suffering and learned to use it. And when that difference becomes visible, something extraordinary happens. The man who was once seen as vulnerable begins to carry a presence that cannot be bought, copied, or easily defeated. So stay until the end, because what they tried to use to destroy you may be exactly what will make you untouchable. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos. It's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder you are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. There's a truth that almost no one realizes while living through the worst moments of their lives. Destruction rarely comes to end a story. Most of the time, it appears to initiate a transformation that would never happen comfortably otherwise. The average person believes that suffering is a sign that something has gone wrong, but the men who truly change their own destiny understand that certain structures need to crumble before something greater can be built. Machiavelli observed that life doesn't reward those most sensitive to difficulties, but those capable of interpreting events through a politics guided by reality, not by ideals. When a friendship ends, when a business fails, when someone is betrayed or abandoned, the first reaction is usually to ask, "Why did this happen to me?" However, A much more powerful question would be, what is this trying to teach me? It is at this moment that destruction ceases to be a sentence and becomes a tool. Many of the strongest men who exist today were born precisely at the moments when they believed they had lost everything. The curious thing is that no one sees this process happening. People only see the end result, but ignore the nights that man spent rebuilding his mind alone. And it is precisely in that silence that the true transformation begins to take shape. Imagine someone who lost a job they considered secure. At first it seems like a tragedy. Fear arises, insecurity grows, and a feeling of failure takes over. But months later, that same person may discover skills they would never have developed if they had remained stuck in their old routine. Life has a curious way of pushing people into places they would never voluntarily choose. That's why Machiavelli talks so much about virtù and fortuna. Fortuna creates events. Virtù determines how someone reacts to them. Some become victims of circumstances. Others transform circumstances into fuel. There is a huge difference between being hit by the storm and learning to navigate within it. The man who understands this stops wasting energy complaining about the past and begins to invest energy in building the future. Little by little, he learns that the end justifies the means when the goal is his own evolution, as long as he does not abandon his fundamental principles. And while others continue trying to recover the life they lost, he begins to realize something unsettling. Perhaps what was destroyed was never truly strong. Perhaps the real question is not what fell, but what began to rise from the ashes. After destruction has served its purpose, something even more uncomfortable emerges: the wound. And this is where most people get lost. Because destroying an old structure is one thing, living with the marks left by that destruction is something else entirely. Pain has a curious characteristic. It reveals what comfort hid. While everything is working, almost no one questions their own weaknesses. But when life strikes, illusions vanish. Man realizes where he was dependent, where he was naive, and where he placed his trust in people who never deserved it. Machiavelli deeply understood this dynamic. For him, the greatest lessons did not come from periods of stability, but from moments when reality removed all masks. The wound does not appear to weaken someone. It appears to show where the armor needs to be reinforced. And however unfair it may seem, there is a pattern that constantly repeats itself. Those who have never suffered great disappointments tend to be the most vulnerable when they finally encounter adversity. Those who have been tested learn something that money, fame, or status can never teach. They learn to see people, risks, and the hidden games of life with an almost uncomfortable clarity. Observe what happens to someone who has been betrayed by a partner, deceived by a friend, or abandoned by someone to whom they swore eternal loyalty. Initially, the experience leaves scars. But over time, these scars transform into practical intelligence. The person begins to listen more than they speak, observe more than they react, analyze more than they believe. This is one of the foundations of decisions based on real human nature. It's not about living in distrust of everyone. It's about understanding how people truly act when interests, emotions, and advantages conflict. This is precisely why many strong men develop an appearance of virtue without fully revealing their intentions. They understand that excessive exposure creates unnecessary vulnerabilities. They learn that not every battle needs to be announced, and that not every victory needs to be celebrated in public. Gradually, the pain ceases to be a burden and transforms into a tool for perception. The wound continues to exist, but now it has another function. It becomes a silent reminder of what should never be repeated. And as this new perception matures, something even deeper begins to happen. It's not just his worldview that's changing. It's the very identity of that man that's beginning to collapse. There's a moment in the journey of transformation that's more frightening than any defeat, rejection, or failure. It's the instant when a person realizes they can't continue being who they've always been. For a long time, they believed that simply acquiring more knowledge, earning more money, or developing more confidence was enough. But reality shows something different. Some versions of ourselves cannot be improved. They need to disappear. And that's one of the most uncomfortable experiences anyone can have, because identity isn't formed solely by qualities. It's also built by habits, beliefs, fears, stories, and even excuses we repeat for years. Machiavelli understood that great changes required the courage to abandon what no longer served us. Most people remain trapped in old versions of themselves because they feel safe in the familiar, even when the familiar is destroying their future. They continue seeking approval from those they don't respect. They continue following routines that don't produce results. They continue carrying thoughts that belong to a phase that should have already ended. The problem is that no one can build a new identity while continuing to protect the old one. There comes a point in life when you have to make a choice: stay comfortable or evolve. And almost always, the two become incompatible. The process is silent. There is no ceremony. There is no announcement. One day, that man simply realizes that certain conversations no longer make sense. Certain environments begin to seem too small. Certain people begin to cause fatigue instead of inspiration. It's as if the mind begins to reject everything that once seemed normal. This is a manifestation of constant adaptability. While many try to preserve outdated versions of themselves, men who advance understand that evolution requires renunciation. A simple example can be seen in someone who wants to build prosperity. He can continue to surround himself with people who ridicule financial discipline, investment, and personal growth. Or he can accept that some connections need to give way so that others can emerge. The same happens with habits. Someone who wants a strong body will hardly maintain the same choices as someone who values only immediate comfort. Someone who seeks leadership will hardly continue to react emotionally to every criticism received. Little by little, the old character begins to disappear. And the more it disappears, the more space emerges for something new. But this transformation brings an unexpected effect, because when the old man dies, not only is someone stronger born, someone is born who begins to see the world through completely different structures. Structures that few understand and that almost no one can influence. Most people believe that becoming strong means learning to overcome others, but the years reveal a much deeper truth. True strength is born when one learns to govern oneself. The untouchable man is not the one who never suffers attacks, criticism, or betrayals. He is the one who ceases to be controlled by them. There is a huge difference between being powerful and appearing powerful. Many spend their entire lives building an image, seeking validation, trying to convince the world of their own worth. But the man who has gone through the destruction, pain, and death of his old self begins to build something much more solid. He builds structure, and structures do not depend on the opinions of others to remain standing. Machiavelli understood that true stability does not come from popular approval, but from the ability to maintain control, even in adverse scenarios. That is why weak leaders waver as applause increases or decreases. Strong leaders, on the other hand, remain firm because their identity is anchored in something deeper. They understand that better to be feared than loved does not mean spreading fear gratuitously. It means developing such a strong presence that no one doubts your ability to act when necessary. Genuine respect is born from this rare combination of serenity and strength. And few manage to achieve it because it requires years of silent construction. The architecture of this man is formed by invisible pillars. The first is discipline. Not the kind of discipline motivated by fleeting enthusiasm, but the discipline that persists even when motivation fades. The second is clarity. He knows exactly which values are negotiable and which will never be sold. The third is self-control. While many surrender their emotions to the first provocateur who comes along, he carefully chooses when to act and when to remain still. This is where the calculated use of force emerges. Not every provocation deserves a response. Not every battle deserves participation. Not every criticism deserves attention. Think of an experienced chess player. He doesn't move his pieces impulsively. Every move has a purpose. Every advance is calculated. Similarly, the untouchable man learns to manage his energy. He stops wasting time trying to convince those who don't want to understand. He stops fighting wars that yield no results. He stops reacting to every small turbulence along the way. Gradually, his mind becomes a difficult territory to invade, and when that happens, an inevitable consequence arises. The people who once thought they knew him begin to realize that something has changed. They can no longer predict their reactions. They can no longer manipulate their emotions. They can no longer access their weaknesses in the same way. And it is precisely at this point that a new dynamic begins to unfold. There's a reason why the most dangerous individuals are rarely the loudest. While most people feel the need to announce their plans, display their achievements, and constantly prove their worth, the truly strong operate differently. They have understood a law that few see. What grows in silence tends to become much harder to stop. Machiavelli observed that much of the conflict arises from unnecessary exposure. When someone reveals every thought, every objective, and every strategy, they offer the world a complete map of their intentions, and maps can be used by both allies and adversaries. The average person confuses visibility with power. The transformed person, however, understands that power is the ability to produce results regardless of the attention received. Therefore, they speak less and observe more. They listen more than they interrupt. They analyze more than they react. Not because they are shy or insecure, but because they have learned that information is one of the most valuable currencies in life. The more they understand others and the less others understand their true intentions, the greater their freedom of movement becomes. This is a practical form of politics guided by reality, not by ideals. This isn't about manipulating for fun. It's about protecting what is still being built. Observe how many people announce grandiose projects and disappear weeks later. They share goals, display plans, and seek approval even before generating results. Now compare that to someone who works quietly for months, develops skills, strengthens their position, and only appears when the work is already finished. The difference is enormous. The first depends on validation. The second depends on execution. That's why the most strategic men create their own support systems, their own resources, and their own competencies. In Machiavellian terms, they build their own loyal armies. This doesn't just refer to people. It also refers to habits, knowledge, discipline, reputation, and resources accumulated over time. A prudent entrepreneur, for example, doesn't depend on a single client. A smart investor doesn't depend on a single source of income. A prepared leader doesn't depend on a single person to sustain their position. They understand that excessive vulnerability creates dependence, and excessive dependence reduces freedom. While others continue to seek immediate recognition, they strengthen their foundations silently. And the more silent this construction becomes, the more surprising the result is when it finally appears. But there is something even more valuable than learning to operate in silence. It is discovering that those who tried to interrupt your journey ended up contributing to your evolution in ways they never imagined. Few people like to admit it, but many of life's greatest achievements didn't come from friends, praise, or moments of comfort. They came from obstacles. They came from criticism. They came from those who, consciously or not, tried to hinder their growth. When everything is easy, almost no one feels the need to evolve. Comfort numbs, stability accommodates, but opposition awakens. That's precisely why so many extraordinary men carry stories marked by rejection, betrayal, and failure. Machiavelli understood that adversaries have an unexpected function within the human journey. They reveal weaknesses that allies often ignore. They point out vulnerabilities that pride tries to hide. And, curiously, it is they who force someone to develop abilities that would never be necessary in tranquil times. Think of how many people discovered their strength only after being underestimated. How many built businesses after hearing they would never succeed. How many transformed their lives after someone bet against them. There is a powerful irony in all of this. Often, those who wish to witness your downfall end up becoming an unwitting part of your rise. Without realizing it, they provide exactly the fuel needed for a new version to emerge. But there is an important difference between using enemies as fuel and allowing them to dominate your mind. The wise man does not live obsessed with revenge. He doesn't wake up every day thinking about proving something to someone. That would be handing over his power to the very person who tried to steal it. Instead, he transforms experience into perception. He comes to better understand social games, hidden interests, and human motivations. He learns to avoid being hated unnecessarily without falling into the trap of trying to please everyone. After all, anyone who accomplishes something relevant will inevitably arouse admiration in some and resistance in others. That is the price of evolution. Little by little, he learns to differentiate useful criticism from empty attacks. He learns to identify false allies before they cause greater damage. He learns to recognize patterns that previously went unnoticed. His reading of people becomes more refined because it is now based on decisions, based on real human nature, not on fantasies about how people should act. And the more this perception matures, the harder it becomes to deceive him. The same blows that once would have brought him down now serve only as information. The same challenges that once generated fear now produce learning. And it is precisely this new capacity for adaptation that begins to prepare the ground for an even more impressive transformation. A transformation that leaves behind not only the pain, but the very identity that the pain helped to build. There comes a point when people who have followed your journey begin to feel something difficult to explain. They look at you and realize they can no longer predict your moves. They can no longer fit you into the old version they kept in their memory. And this happens because most people believe they know someone forever, when in reality they only know one phase of that person. The problem is that they continue to relate to an old image while you have already become something else. Machiavelli understood that survival and growth depend on constant adaptability. The world changes, circumstances change, challenges change, but many insist on remaining exactly the same, and that is why they end up being overtaken by reality itself. The man who has gone through destruction, pain, silence, and discipline learns a rare lesson. His identity is not a prison, it is a construction, and everything that has been built can be rebuilt. While some spend decades repeating the same mistakes, he develops the ability to quickly abandon what has ceased to work. He doesn't cling to the past just because he invested time in it. He doesn't protect failed strategies just because he's already invested effort in them. He understands that persisting in error out of pride is far more costly than changing direction when necessary. That's precisely why those who try to define him end up falling behind. They still see the insecure, impulsive, or dependent man who existed years ago. But that version no longer exists. It has been replaced by someone who has learned to evolve without asking permission. A simple example can be seen in people who completely change their financial situation. Many acquaintances continue to treat them as if they were incapable, even after evident results. Others constantly try to remind them of their past failures. But the transformed man doesn't struggle to convince anyone. He understands that results speak much louder than arguments. This mentality is deeply linked to the relationship between virtù and fortuna. Fortuna presents new opportunities and new challenges, but it is virtù that allows one to take advantage of both. And the more he evolves, the less need he feels to explain his moves. After all, someone who is busy building rarely finds time to justify every decision. Gradually, a characteristic emerges that bothers many people: unpredictability. Not because he is chaotic, but because he can no longer be limited by the expectations of others. And when someone becomes impossible to limit, they inevitably begin to develop an even more powerful quality. A discipline so cold, so stable, and so independent of fleeting emotions that it begins to function as an invisible force guiding every step of the way. Most people believe that transformation happens when someone feels inspired. But the truth is far less exciting and far more powerful. The greatest results in life almost never stem from motivation. They stem from discipline. Because motivation is an unreliable visitor. It appears full of energy and disappears without warning. Discipline, on the other hand, remains even on difficult days, tiring days, and days when nothing seems to be working. The new man learns this the hard way. After suffering losses, facing betrayals, and rebuilding his own identity, he realizes that he cannot depend on emotions to keep moving forward. Emotions change. Goals remain. Machiavelli understood that those who achieve lasting positions are not necessarily the most talented, but the most consistent. That's why so many people start brilliant projects and abandon everything at the first obstacle. They work when they feel like it. They act when they are motivated. They persist only as long as there is enthusiasm. The transformed man operates differently. He creates systems, he creates patterns, he creates commitments that are independent of his emotional state. He learns that freedom doesn't come from the absence of rules, but from the ability to follow consciously chosen rules. And the more he understands this, the less his life is controlled by external circumstances. This discipline has a characteristic that many people misinterpret. It seems cold, it seems distant, it seems almost merciless, but not because man has lost his humanity. On the contrary, he has simply stopped constantly negotiating with himself. When he decides to wake up early, he wakes up. When he decides to study, he studies. When he decides to invest in himself, he invests. Without endless internal debates, without elaborate excuses, without waiting for the perfect moment. This is one of the most practical reflections of the idea that the end justifies the means when the goal is to build a stronger, freer life, more aligned with one's own values. An athlete doesn't train only when he's excited. An entrepreneur doesn't work only when he's inspired. A leader doesn't make decisions only when he feels comfortable. They all understand something fundamental. Extraordinary results require extraordinarily consistent behavior. This is also where a refined form of the calculated use of force emerges. Because discipline is not just knowing how to act. It's knowing how to direct energy towards what really matters. While many waste hours on distractions, unnecessary conflicts, and useless worries, the new man focuses his attention on what produces real growth. And as the years go by, this seemingly small difference begins to produce gigantic consequences. Consequences so evident that even the most critical cannot ignore them. After all, time has a curious habit. It always reveals who was just talking and who was really building. There is a judge who cannot be bought, manipulated, or convinced by emotional speeches. a judge who silently observes every choice, every habit, every decision, and every renunciation. That judge is time. For a few months, it's possible to pretend. For a few years, perhaps it's possible to maintain an appearance. But eventually, the years reveal the truth about everyone. They reveal who lived only on promises and who built concrete results. They reveal who spent their lives blaming circumstances and who took responsibility for their own destiny. Machiavelli deeply understood this reality. That's why he valued so much politics guided by reality, not by ideals. Reality always wins in the long run. No matter how many excuses someone invents, no matter how many justifications they present, the results end up speaking for themselves. And that's precisely why so many men begin to see life differently after a certain age. They realize that the world doesn't reward intentions. It rewards actions repeated over time. The person who invests daily in knowledge, discipline, and personal growth may not seem impressive on a single day. But after 5, 10, or 20 years, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. Time amplifies everything. It amplifies virtues and it amplifies weaknesses. It amplifies discipline and it amplifies negligence. And when this amplification happens, the truth appears without needing explanations. This is where many understand something Machiavelli observed centuries ago. The combination of virtue, and fortune, does not produce instant results. It produces accumulated results. Fortuna offers opportunities, but only virtù allows one to take advantage of them repeatedly over the years. Think of two people who start in the same place. One chooses comfort whenever possible. The other chooses growth whenever necessary. For a while, their lives may seem similar. Perhaps the first even seems happier and more peaceful. But the years begin to take their toll on every decision made. Gradually, their paths diverge. One accumulates skills, the other accumulates regrets. One strengthens their mind, the other strengthens their excuses. One builds their own loyal armies in the form of skills, reputation, and resources. The other continues to depend on luck to solve problems that could have been avoided. And then comes the inevitable moment when time delivers its verdict. Not through words, but through visible reality, through results, through the way each one lives. And it is precisely at this moment that an almost uncomfortable realization arises. Those who tried to destroy you, discredit you, or limit you no longer hold any real relevance, because the battle ceased to be about them long ago. Now there is only one remaining issue, one final understanding, one last truth that definitively separates ordinary men from those who have become impossible to shake. There comes a point when a man realizes he has spent his entire life understanding power in the wrong way. For years, he believed that being strong meant winning arguments, accumulating money, achieving status, or proving his worth to those who doubted him. But after enduring destruction, surviving wounds, abandoning old versions of himself, and enduring the silent judgment of years, a different understanding emerges. True power is not in controlling others, it is in ceasing to be controlled. The untouchable man is not the one who is never attacked, it is the one who can no longer be easily shaken. Criticism comes, but it doesn't define his worth. Losses happen, but they don't destroy his identity. Betrayals occur, but they don't alter his principles. There is an inner stability that does not depend on external circumstances. Machiavelli understood that all lasting leadership is born from this kind of strength, not theatrical, displayed, and impulsive strength, but strength built silently over time. This is why many confuse serenity with weakness. They confuse self-control with passivity. They confuse silence with a lack of power. But those who have truly learned life's lessons know that the most solid structures are often the least noisy. And when a man reaches that level of stability, something extraordinary happens. He stops reacting to the world and begins to act upon it. From that point on, his presence changes, not because he's trying to impress anyone, but because his decisions begin to reflect a deep understanding of human nature. He knows when to advance. He knows when to retreat. He knows when to speak. He knows when to remain silent. He understands that being feared rather than loved can be a useful strategy in certain circumstances, but he also understands the importance of avoiding being hated when he wants to preserve influence and stability. He has learned to use the appearance of virtue without becoming a slave to public opinion. He has developed the calculated use of force without becoming cruel. He has built his life on decisions based on real human nature and strengthened his position through constant adaptability. The result of all this is simple and yet rare. He no longer needs to prove who he is. He no longer needs to chase validation. He no longer needs to convince those who chose not to understand his journey, because time has already spoken. The results have already spoken. Reality has already spoken. And while many continue to struggle to appear strong, he has become truly strong, not because of easy victories, but because of everything that tried to destroy him. And that's precisely where the most powerful irony of all lies. Those who came to break it never realized they were participating in the construction of something they could never touch again. Now the question is no longer about what they did to you. The question is about what you are going to do with everything that has happened. Because if there's one lesson that runs through this entire journey, it's that suffering in itself doesn't transform anyone. What transforms is the decision to use each blow as fuel. Some people go through pain and come out bitter. Others go through the same pain and come out stronger, wiser, and more prepared. The difference has never been in the difficulty faced. It has always been in how it was interpreted. Think for a moment about your own life. What were the moments that hurt you the most? What were the losses that seemed impossible to overcome? Who were the people who doubted your abilities, ridiculed your dreams, or tried to convince you that you couldn't succeed? Now reflect honestly. What if these events hadn't happened? Would you be the same person you are today? Would you have developed the same strength, the same perception, the same ability to see reality without illusions? Machiavelli understood that the most dangerous men are not those who have never fallen. They are those who have fallen, learned, and returned stronger. They are those who have abandoned fantasies and started making decisions based on real human nature. Those who have understood the importance of constant adaptability. Those who have learned that virtue and fortune go hand in hand and that life favors those who are prepared to act when opportunities arise. Perhaps you are still going through a difficult phase right now. Perhaps you are living a silent battle that no one knows about. Perhaps you are looking at your own problems without being able to see a way out. But remember something. The greatest transformations rarely seem like transformations while they are happening. Most of the time, they look like chaos, they look like loss, they look like confusion. Only later, looking back, does the logic reveal itself. So I want to leave you with a few questions. Who would you be if you stopped running away from the lessons life is trying to teach you? What weakness still needs to die so that a stronger version can be born? What is a decision you know you need to make, but keep putting off? And most importantly, is the thing that tried to destroy you winning? Or is it strengthening you? Write your answer in the comments. I want to know what the biggest adversity you faced in your life was, and what lesson it taught you. Your story can help other people who are going through similar battles right now. If this video gave you a new perspective, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, we explore Machiavelli's ideas on power, strategy, human nature, and personal transformation in a way that few dare to discuss. Because understanding the world is important, but understanding yourself is what truly changes a man's destiny. See you in the next video.